Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here, coming at you with review number 5 of the upcoming expansions cards. The Knights of the Frozen Throne is launching on the 10th. That's really soon. I didn't actually realize how many cards I hadn't reviewed on YouTube. I review them every night on stream when I start up at 11 EST, and I kind of just forget sometimes that I'm behind like 30 cards or something, and we're going to get like 50 some more in a couple of days. So there's going to be lots of card reviewing, which is good because right now the current state of Hearthstone is, well, kind of played out. Anyway, kicking it off, we have the Shaman Death Knight card, Thrall the Deathseer. Costs 5, which is really the most striking thing in terms of the hero cards. It is the cheapest that we've seen, and it transforms your minions into random ones that cost 2 more. So it's like a double evolution effect. It's not as good as double evolution because double evolving you can often get use out of charging minions in the intermediary between the first and the second evolve, but it's pretty close. And you get 5 health. So like double evolve and 5 health for 5. Is that worth it? Yeah, I think it is. So I think just by itself is a good card. And you have to keep in mind that with every Death Knight hero card, you also change your hero power. And in this case, it becomes Transmute Spirit. And you basically get to single target evolve something. And this is a really big deal. Of course, it's going to have some extremely high variance games. Constructed is okay with high variance games, though. I mean, typically most of the decks out there that do well are extremely high variance. The reason this is good is if you have a medium to big minion, you hit something, it's an injured medium to big minion. When you transform it, you essentially heal it up into a bigger minion. So even though you might not get a more powerful minion, it'll be more powerful eventually because it'll keep going up and up and up in mana cost, and each time it does that, it's getting healed. So I would say this is approximately at least a slightly better priest hero power. So overall, it's a very solid hero card. Tomb Lurker. 5 for a 5/3, absolutely abysmal stats. This is like bad for 3 mana worth of stats. Adds a death rattle minion that died this game to your hand. So it's a random death rattle. It's not discover or anything. So it can be really bad, like if there's aggressive decks playing and aggressive decks are running death rattle minions, which you typically are, it can really screw over your strategy, even though you might design a deck around this card. It just might not work. It just seems like it costs too much, but who knows? If the only people running death rattles are control decks and you're playing a control deck revolving around this card, I imagine it's pretty damn powerful. It just seems very situational. Righteous Protector, and this is probably the card that I think annoys me the most out of the upcoming expansion. So Argent Squire is basically a neutral version of this that doesn't have taunt, and that has seen play in every meta since the game came out. It's an extremely powerful 1-drops, and extremely powerful 1-drops basically ruin the game. So this is an extremely powerful 1-drop on top of the existing extremely powerful 1-drops. So it's just a mind-blowingly insane game-swinging early game card for Paladin. Basically, this is what they needed to have the Divine Shield Swarm aggro minion deck work. So just because of this card, I imagine that deck will work. This card is obviously insane. I think it'll be played in a lot of decks. The only kind of like good thing, I guess, it kind of ruins the Stonehill Defender Discover options because there's another taunt Paladin class card, Discovery, getting 400% boost. You're not going to see as many Tyrians and shit, but you're still going to see a lot. And this card, honestly, is so good for tempo on 1. You're not even going to feel bad when you see it as one of your options with Discovers. Runeforge Haunter, 4-cost 5/3. During your turn, your weapon doesn't lose durability. Yeah, it just feels like it's not powerful enough. There's obviously some weapons that you might want to just extend a turn or two, but as long as oozes exist, cards like these are just not going to be great. They might be good, but they're never going to be great. Corpse Razor, 5-cost for a 3/3. The battle card gives a friendly minion death rattle, resummon this minion. That's a really powerful effect. Some people said it's worse than Ancestral Spirit, which is the Shaman 2-cost spell with the same effect, and I buy that. I think it is likely worse than that, but you have to keep in mind that was a Shaman only card, and Shaman revival mechanics were overall pretty weak. They just kind of hard to make them work given the class relies so much on board control. If you go all in on a minion with death rattle, if it just gets hexed, it's over, right? So I think there's probably some potential for this card to work really well in other classes and other just crazy combo decks. And you also have to keep in mind that with Ancestral Spirit, it's just like a totally dead card if you're in top deck mode. It's really bad if you don't get the specific card you're looking for because it doesn't have any value by itself. This is still a 3/3 body, which I would say it's obviously not strong, but it's not irrelevant. Okay, so card for card, even if the battle card doesn't trigger, if you're playing like Mage in Arena, it'll trade with most 4-drops with your hero power. That's big advantage over Ancestral Spirit, and I think in terms of at least at Arena, it'll actually be a more powerful card. Corpse Widow, 5 cost 4/6 Beast. Your Death Rattle cards cost 2 less. This is a really powerful card. You can do this and then play a 4-mana Highmane. Basically, the way you have to look at it is, if you have Death Rattles in your deck anyway, you might consider playing this card if you think your deck should excel in the mid to late game. Now, as a hunter, you generally want to excel in the early to mid game, which is the only complication of this card, but you really have to think of the advantages. So if you're playing just one Death Rattle card, so this and one Death Rattle card while this effect is happening, and you can probably do that on the same turn pretty easily, I imagine. So that's basically like a 3 cost 4/6 Beast, which is crazy. So it's a crazy card if you can play that style of a hunter, but time will tell that. Devour Mind. Copy 3 cards in your opponent's deck and add them to your hand. So it's like Thoughtsteal +1. It's in line with card draw mechanics. The way card draw is valued on cards is the first card that you draw is worth 1 mana. Every card after that is worth 2 mana. That's why you have like cycle effects that are like nothing. And then Arcane Intellect is like 1 + 2. And then Nourish is plus another 2, then Sprint plus another 2. So this is kind of like the Nourish, just as Arcane Intellect is Thoughtsteal, Devour Mind is Nourish. So it's good, it's fine. Usually when you're playing Thoughtsteal as a priest, it is fairly late in the game anyway, so getting even more value out of it, I imagine, would actually be even better in some cases. So I imagine this card will probably see some play at some point. Glacial Mysteries, 8 cost mage spell, put one of each secret from your deck into the battlefield. Now, the issue that I have with this card is it costs a lot for what it does in the end. So for this card to be really powerful, you need to be playing at least 5 decent secrets for mage. That's where the problem is. A lot of the secrets cancel each other out. Like, you have like copy effects and Potion of Polymorph, but they're both nullified by your opponent playing a bad minion. There's a lot of just clunkiness, and do you really want these secrets in your deck normally? It's not exactly Secret Paladin. You're playing a very different type of deck if you're including this. It's obviously, if you pull 5 cards and play them all, that's insane value, but because there's so much cancellation, and because a lot of the mage secrets just absolutely blow, this is probably a little bit worse than it looks, but who knows? A few good secrets and this card is suddenly the meta, right? We'll see in the future. But for now, I'm not so sure. Simulacrum, 3 cost mage spell, copy the lowest cost minion in your hand. So this card becomes a copy of the minion, I imagine. That's okay. I think in terms of like OTK combos and some cool stuff like that, that is something that you can do. It's just a little clunky and obviously built only for that reason. Lillian Voss, the rogue legendary minion, 4 cost 4/5, decent stats. Replace spells in your hand with random spells from your opponent's class. So this is obviously a really bad card when you consider the current and past versions of rogue decks that basically rely on having very specific spells to burst the opponent before running out of cards and health, which as a rogue usually happens faster than you'd expect. So obviously this is a really powerful card. It just has no place in any type of rogue deck that we've ever seen. That doesn't mean it's not going to see any play. With each expansion, there's a lot of potential for new decks to rise, and cards like these might make that happen. I have my doubts, but it is not a bad card by itself. Like, this is a great arena card. Standalone, it's pretty good. But yeah, it might screw over your combos, and that would make it a terrible constructed card. But, you know, if you can design a deck that can do relatively well just by itself, if you don't happen to draw this card with, like, rose petals and shit, but then when you do draw this card, you make your rose petals into, like, actual cards and get out of control. You know, it's okay, it's okay. I have my doubts, though. Unwilling Sacrifice, 3-cost Warlock spell. Choose a friendly minion, destroy it, and a random enemy minion. So it's like Deadly Shot minus. But sometimes it's good to destroy friendly minions, just very rarely. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It seems pretty bad. Warlock, 2-cost, 2/2. Battlecry, freeze an enemy Warlock. It's alright, I guess. I mean, some constructed decks played the Glacial Elemental, whatever it is, and that's kind of just slightly better card than this. You have to weigh the fact that Murloc tags are really big, and the Murloc win condition is get more minions than your opponent, and this effect helps you much more than it does as an elemental deck. So it's okay. I think this might be good. I just kind of think the whole Murloc Shaman thing as a whole is kind of dead, but we still have a bunch of cards to see, so maybe not. Treachery. 3-cost, choose a friendly minion and give it to your opponent. So I have been waiting for an effect like this since we started talking about custom cards like 3 years ago. This is a really cool effect. There's a few issues here, though. So the main issue is it's a control effect. You're not going to play this in an aggro deck. You're not going to play this in a mid-range deck. You're going to play this in a control deck. And it's sadly balanced around Doomsayer. So you play Doomsayer, you give it to your opponent, it goes off before he can do anything, and that's a 5-mana 2-card clear any board that you want. And that's a really good combo, right? But I couldn't actually think of any other card this would be great with, given the card and mana investment of those plays. So basically the sad case is, because Doomsayer is a thing and this card is not worded to exclude Doomsayer, it's otherwise really terrible. So I don't know. Might see some play, but I think Control Warlock still needs more help than we've seen so far from this expansion. Then we have the Rogue Death Knight. 9-cost, 5 armor, battlecry gives stealth until your next turn. That's a pretty big deal. So you can't be targeted when you have stealth, of course. You can still get hit with like AoE damage effects. Now, if you even if you had like 1 health, gaining the 5 armor, there's almost nothing that would kill you. There's very, very fringe cases where you could actually die, like Fellfire Potion plus Hellfire or something, like really rare. So typically this is going to mean you get an extra turn, but you kind of used up your whole turn playing the card, so the main way you're actually going to gain an advantage is if you have a gigantic weapon. So if you have a gigantic weapon, you hit your opponent in the face, then you get an extra turn, and the extra turn gives you the advantage of getting that extra weapon attack in the face. So is that good? Yeah, that's alright. I don't know how realistic it is to get to turn 9 on a rogue, because rogues usually cycle out their hand with cheap spells and stuff, and this is going to be a dead card for a long time in the rogue deck that I'm imagining, but who knows. You also change your hero power to Death's Shadow. It's a passive hero power, and during your turn you get a Shadow Reflection to your hand. What's a Shadow Reflection? That's a Shadow Reflection. So each time you play a card, this Shadow Reflection card turns into a copy of that card. So let's say you play like a minion, this becomes that minion. So you play another one of those minions, but you don't want to do that. Maybe you eviscerate your opponent in the face. This becomes an eviscerate. So like, okay, yeah, I want to eviscerate my opponent in the face again. And you get this at the start of every turn. So it's overall a really powerful effect. The main drawbacks are the main synergy is gigantic weapons, which get savagely countered in Hearthstone, and 9 mana, which is not something rogues are familiar with. Speaking of high mana cards, we have the Druid, crazy high mana card, 10-cost Ultimate Infestation. Deal 5 damage, draw 5 cards, gain 5 armor, and summon a 5/5 ghoul. So this card is ridiculous. Remember earlier in the video how I talked about the value in card draw? Sprint is draw 4. So if you want to draw 5 cards, balance around the old card draw mechanics, it would be a 9-cost card that would draw you 5 cards. There's a 10-cost card that draws you 5 cards, but it does 5 damage, gives you 5 armor, which is kind of like a Holy Fire, and puts a 5/5 ghoul in play, which is, in my opinion, about, let's say, 3.5 to 4 mana by constructed standards at least. So you basically do 18 mana worth of stuff, and it's all on one card, so it's kind of, in terms of value and all that, you're doing about 20 to 22 mana worth of stuff. That's absolutely insane. Now, the drawbacks are it's all on one card, it's Druid. The Druid late game win conditions are not as well defined. What I'm saying is a lot of the other classes have some really broken ass, extremely powerful combos and control cards right now. And while this is extremely powerful and way off the power curve, Druids kind of struggle to be that control class, and now they have much higher competition. This might be Blizzard's attempt to kind of balance Druids, except for Jade Druids, of course, with the other control elements of the other classes. But basically what I'm saying is I don't think it would lead the meta. I think it might kind of match some of the other control decks because, again, it seems like control late game cards are getting the power creep they basically have deserved for the last few years. Then we have the Desperate Stand. 2-cost Paladin spell gives a minion death rattle, return this to life with 1 health. So this is basically what Redemption did when secrets could trigger on your own turn like 3 years ago, and that was an extremely powerful effect when considering mid to late game Divine Shield minions, especially things like Argent Commander, where you'd play it, attack something, it'd still be there the next turn, you'd play Redemption, or this card now, I guess, on your Argent Commander, attack into something, kill off your Argent Commander, come back right away, still have the Divine Shield and charge again, you attack again, and you get the idea. It's really, really good effect. I don't know if it's good enough to meet the Divine Shield Swarm Aggro Paladin, which I'm pretty sure is going to be a deck. It's just, this is still kind of borderline in that deck, I feel. It can be very powerful, but I don't know if that deck will include mid to late game Divine Shield minions. I suspect it's largely going to be small ones, which would make this card a lot worse. Shadow Ascendant, 2-cost Priest card. Whoa, how about that? And it kind of sucks. So 2 mana 2/2 is pretty damn bad. It buffs other friendly minions, so you need other friendly minions, which is kind of the problem playing Priest. If you play a Priest 1-drop, it's probably not going to compete with opponents' 1-drops unless it's North Shard, then this card's good, but if it's not, this card sucks. And a 2-card early game combo is a little optimistic when playing Priest. I think the best use for this card is it's okay in Arena, and probably best off playing 2 of them or just with another 2-drop on turn 4, which again is not great. It's just an okay card. Skulking Geist. So this card has been the talk of the town on Reddit. 6-cost 4/6 Battlecry, destroy all 1-cost spells in both hands and decks. So this obviously completely destroys Jade Druid, and I think it's really stupid to actually counter a card this way. I have to keep in mind Blizzard designs expansions 2 expansions in advance, so we're getting this card to counter Jade Druid, problem 2 expansions ago, much like Pirate Warriors were a problem 2 expansions before that when we got Galaka Crawler. So I don't like this form of rebalancing. Those cards are obviously broken. They create not fun gaming environments within a game that we love. Honestly, those cards should just get nerfed. This is a really crappy way to change those cards. Specifically this one. I don't think this card is going to be as useful as you might imagine, unless you can create a deck where it's good if you remove your 1-cost spells from your own deck. And also if people are playing combo decks with 1-cost spells, which they might be, and then this card might be okay. But because it's a 6-cost card with poor stats for that mana cost, it is just on a very low power level. So if the effect isn't very good, then well, it's a huge weight to your deck. Now, people talked about, well, you can just, if you just discard any 1 card from your opponent's hand, that's like removing a draw, which just kind of puts this card into balance. But you have to keep in mind, if your opponent is just playing like whatever 4 1-cost spells, let's say, that he doesn't actually need to win the game, just whatever cards. Let's say you discard 1 from his hand, which, he has 1 less card in his hand. That's pretty good, right? But then the other 3, he's not going to draw into them. And generally, you don't want to draw into 1-mana spells in the late game. So you're kind of doing him a favor as well. I think that actually kind of balances out. So again, I think the main way you're going to use this card, one, if Jade Druid's completely out of control, but it won't be because this card exists, so I guess kind of mission accomplished, I guess. But the main way you're going to use this card in a normal circumstance, the way you're going to use this card and feel good about it, rather than just a stupid way to counter a stupid deck, is if you are playing a deck that you do not want to draw your 1-drops in the late game. So, for example, you can be playing Priest, Power Word Shields, Holy Smites, and let's say Potion of Madnesses. All really good cards in the early game, but all very poor cards in the late game and cards you don't want to draw. So what you do is you play 2 of these, you play 2 copies of each of those, you use up all your 1-cost spells from your hand, and then you remove the crappy 1-drops from your deck so you can only draw good cards. So that's kind of the idea. And I think that can work. I just don't know how yet, or if it really will for sure. We have Ice Fishing. 2-cost, drop 2 Murlocs from your deck. That seems pretty good. Several ways to play this card. You can just play like a Murloc Shaman, or you can play with very specific Murlocs and try to have some kind of like combo wombo. Like if you just have charge Murlocs and buff Murlocs, maybe you can get like a Bloodlust combo. That's obviously a bad idea, but you just to illustrate how you might want to use it differently. I like this card because it's fairly open while still targeting specific cards that generally don't see a lot of play. Roll the Bones, 2-cost rogue card, draw a card. If it has Death Rattle, cast this again. So I've played N'Zoth Rogue, obviously, as I've played every N'Zoth deck. So I've played Death Rattle packed decks, Death Rattle packed rogues specifically in this case, and they don't have that many Death Rattle minions. So, for this to be a good card, you're going to have to draw at least 1.5 on average, right? Yeah. So for you to draw 1.5 on average, half your deck needs to be Death Rattles. Half your deck is not going to be Death Rattles. Maybe there's some redemption for this card if you're playing close to that and Auctioneers, but then Auctioneers don't really work. It's kind of a mess. Acolyte of Agony. Priest early game card, and it sucks again. So it's a 3-mana 3/3, which in Arena is pretty good because it gives you consistency when drafting. Because this is going to have a massive occurrence bonus. It's a class card. It's a common. You're just going to see it so frequently that you are rarely going to be lacking 3-drops playing Priest in Arena, which is a good thing. But the card in itself is not really that good. Lifesteal is a pretty good mechanic, but it's not good on turn 3 because on turn 3 you're usually not missing that much or really any health. 3/3 is not going to make a big impact in the late game, so it kind of sucks there. Basically, think about it. When is this going to be better than Earthen Ring Farseer? So if you play it and it gives you 6 health, so if it attacks and then attacks second time or gets attacked, that's just so rare. It's so rarely better than Earthen Ring Farseer, and Farseer is flexible and still not really included in any priest decks I can recall. Drukhari Defender, 3-cost, 2/8 taunt, overload 3. Ooh, that's a huge cost. So if this had like 1 more attack, it'd basically be the, I don't know what it's called, the tree thing, 6-cost, 3/8 taunt, which is a pretty solid arena card. Now, if you compare it to like Mogoshan, -1/-1 for 4, this obviously looks really bad. But I think Shaman doesn't struggle too much to buff the attack of its minions. It kind of focuses on that actually. So, I think if you can make a deck that regularly buffs the attack of your minions, this is actually a really good card. The downside of that is if the meta is mid-range to control, that still won't matter because if this is like a 4/8, control still won't care. So there's a few challenges there, but it's possible this card can overcome all those and actually rule the meta. Like if the meta is fairly aggressive decks, rarely over 4 health minions, this card is insane. So we'll have to see. Fallen Sun Cleric, 2 cost, 2/1, friendly minion, +1/+1. It's kind of like the Shattered Sun effect, but you can't have as many 1-drops as you can have 2-drops, particularly in Arena where this card will be played. So it's a little bit worse, even though it's on a slightly higher power level. It just doesn't work with what you're typically going to get in an Arena deck. Priest Death Knight. This is an interesting one. So it's 8 cost. 8 cost is fine. You can usually do something with 2 mana. Battlecry destroys all minions with 5 or more attack. So my beef with this is Priest, if you play just a fairly controlling Priest, you kind of beat other control decks anyway. So having that effect, having like a 3rd death or maybe 4th death if you can hit 2 with it, is not really that big of a deal, but again, the meta is going to change, so maybe it will be a big deal. Now, the potential big deal is what your hero power becomes. It becomes Void Form. So it's deal 2 damage, but also after you play a card, refresh your hero power. So by itself, it's just pretty good, but when it gets really insane is if you have played Raza. So if you played Raza, this is going to cost you 0. So basically every time you play any card, you can deal 2 damage to whatever you want for free. That's when it gets completely batshit insane. So just because of the hero power, this might actually be a really powerful card, but we're going to have to be looking at Singleton Priest, and the consistency might be too big of a challenge. This is something we'll really have to test, but I think it'll be fun testing. Play Dead, trigger Death Rattle for 1. It's pretty good. Drop down a high main, 1 mana, 2 2/2s, pretty good. Just depends on how much of your deck is Death Rattles. Right now, not very many. After the expansion, possibly enough. Good card, but it needs a pretty strict requirement. Death Speaker, 3 cost, 2/4. Battlecry, give a friendly minion immune this turn. This card is ridiculous. This is slightly worse than Argent Protector, but Argent Protector is basically included in almost every single deck and carries the hell out of Paladin in Arena. The reason it's not quite as good as Argent Protector is because I can't imagine where an immune effect is actually better than a Divine Shield effect when played proactively on your turn, because except for like Abomination hits or something, it's just the same thing. But with Divine Shield, you can stack it for a tempo play. So if your opponent has no minions and you have a minion and then you can Argent Protector that minion, having the Divine Shield carries over the following turns. But this effect is only until end of turn. So that's why I don't think it's quite as good as Argent Protector. But again, being neutral really opens up what's going to happen and what's possible. I can see this card being played anywhere and everywhere. It's just an extremely powerful card. Even in control decks, mid-range decks, even in aggro decks, I think this is pretty good. It's not a high cost to play that. Maybe not like face decks, but like fairly aggressive, let's say mid-range decks. I can see this being played into those. We'll have to see though. This might be a bit of a problem. Rattling Rascal, 4 cost, 2/2. Summon a 5/5 skeleton. Death Rattle summons 1 for your opponent. So you kind of have to silence this or get around that effect. It's pretty powerful though. I mean, it's 4 mana, 7/7. It's just, you have to be really ahead. It's definitely a win more card, and some decks really work off of that, so that might be good enough. Howl Fiend, 3 cost, 3/6 Demon. When this minion takes damage, discard a random card. Oh man. That's a ridiculously high cost, but the really funny thing about this card is it works very well with the Warlock quest, and works unbelievably well with the Clutch Mother Legendary. So if this card is taken like 3-4 hits and every time it's landing on the clutch, holy crap, that thing is going to get way out of control. Really fun card. I think it's going to be relatively weak, but I can't wait to try it out. Frozen Clone, new Mage secret. After your opponent plays a minion, add 2 copies of it to your hand. So in just a standalone card, that's pretty good. You gain value, you gain cards, you gain hand size. It's a nice card. But again, this gets countered by your opponent playing a small minion. Mirenti gets countered by your opponent playing a small minion. Potion of Polymorph gets countered by your opponent playing a small minion. So these cards have extreme negative synergy with one another. Secret decks are still kind of struggling with that pretty hard, at least as Mage is concerned. You have Shadow Essence, 6 cost, summon a 5/5 copy of a random minion in your deck. This can get really crazy if you only have very few and very specific minions in your deck. Like if you're running the new Obsidian Destroyer crazy-ass Priest card, and just N'Zoth, 2 out of 3 times you're getting one of those. The other time you're getting a N'Zoth, which it's alright, but yeah, this can be very strong. Then we have Rotface, 8 cost, 4/6 warrior legendary. When this minion survives damage, summon a random legendary minion. Cost 8, so it's pretty difficult to set this up. If you play this and it gets one-shotted, it's absolutely terrible. So we are looking at extremely high requirements. Very, very challenging to pull this off. But who knows? That's a powerful effect. Might be worth it. Breath of Sindragosa. For 1 Mage spell, deal 2 damage to a random enemy and freeze it. This is a really high power level card. Mage survives off of these, and I don't know if it's good enough to lead a new wave of tempo mages, but who knows? We've been surprised with cards like these in the past. And then lastly for today, I have Bone Drake. 6 cost for a 6/5 dragon. When it dies, add a random dragon to your hand. So this card's absolutely bonkers in Arena, and probably good enough in Constructed. I mean, it's a dragon, Priest can probably run it. It's a Death Rattle, so Priest can probably run it with N'Zoth and a few other Death Rattle interactive cards. Overall, pretty strong stuff. Expansion spicing up, more card reveals, gets me hyped up even more. There are a few problematic cards that I see, but time will tell, and we'll have to experiment and see when the expansion comes out. For now, hope you guys enjoyed my review, and I'll see you guys in a bit.